My name is Peter Krems, and I'm here with Marion Krause, and we're going to have a conversation about some of the fundamental principles that apply to all the various programs that we do, that we're defining some jargon. These words have meaning to us, of course, and it's kind of nuanced, but the first time you hear them, it's like, why can't you just say it more simply, right? So we're going to try to make this a little bit more accessible. I think that there's a couple of reasons why someone might want to do some advanced training at the Gestalt Institute of Cleveland. And I think particularly for organizationally focused people, whether you're a leader, internal or external consultant, a coach, you might be a trusted advisor working across the system. I find people are often in these expert and advising roles, but it's also a coaching and a helping role. And I think that if you have an interest in doing this, it's probably because you're feeling like you want to take your work to the next level. I think that just about every one of us that does this work has our methods, our techniques. We've gone to other programs. But what's different about the Gestalt approach is it works at a deeper level. My background is actually from the University of Minnesota in industrial psychology. I went to work at Honeywell in the Management and Organization Development department. I did work as an internal facilitator, trainer, consultant. I also then went into a small consulting firm and really since 1982 have been an individual practitioner. My academic work helped me get good grounding in developmental psychology. I did work with groups and organizations in particular. But my consulting work changed dramatically when I learned Gestalt. And I came here about 20 years ago for my first program. And one of my teachers during my various programs that I took here at the Institute was Marion Krause. So Marion, maybe you could say a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Let's see, I've been teaching at the Institute about 30 years now.
30 years.
But 30 years,
Yeah.
I know, in a number of different programs, working with individuals, working with groups, working with couples and families, working with organizations, in our current Culture for Radical Engagement program. So I feel like I have a nice taste of the variety of things that we offer here. I have my doctorate in community clinical psychology and have practiced across coaching, facilitating, some organizational consulting, some personal development psychotherapy, so a bit of a range of
I think you probably, among all the faculties, have the most balanced experience in both doing the coaching and maybe organizational community work as well as the clinical work. And so I think that makes you especially useful as we talk about these concepts because you see them in a whole range of perspectives. I'm kind of curious, when you first heard about Gestalt, and many of the people that are watching this video are watching this to say, what is this Gestalt thing? And why would I take all the time to go to these programs? Take us back to when you first heard about Gestalt. What captured your interest about it? What made you want to make the investment,
Sure. I'd been through actually 2 master's programs, and I was in my doctoral program, and I was studying a number of different approaches and wanted to learn as much as I could. And I ended up being in a class with a woman who was running groups, and she amazed me. The level of work she did with people, the amount of change and full engagement I experienced, as well as the capacity of what she could see going on in a group, amazed me. So I went up after class and I said, where'd you learn how to do that? And she said, the Gestalt Institute. Go down the street and take some classes. So I did, and I've been here ever since.
The rest is history. Well, it certainly grabbed your energy, didn't it?
Yeah.
I can clearly say I'm a different and better consultant, helper, even trainer than I was before I took these programs.
Sure.
And a lot of it has to do with realizing that the answers aren't in what I learned in the books and academia. Those models are very helpful, giving me a framework, helping me understand what's going on in the room. And so it's all very important work. But the answers weren't there for the person I was working with. And I think what's different is that it made me stop being either in the past with what I knew from the past, or what I think the latest model is and what we need to do or anticipate where I think they should be, and just be in the moment with them, which sounds so simple, be in the here and now, right? But it's hard to do. I think in particular this notion of paying attention to what's emerging. Can you tell me what, when you talk about emergent phenomena, again, that sort of sounds a little like psychological jargon, what does that mean for you?
Well, I think, if we're paying attention to our own kind of phenomenology, which is kind of that which appears to us in our awareness, what is emergent is that which is on the edge, on the horizon of appearing to us in our awareness. And it's really easy for us sometimes to kind of be focused out in the future about planning, thinking, or in the past, and not so much about what's emerging in this present, in my thoughts, in my feelings, in my attending to the environment. So the emergent is kind of saying, get your attention here. What's happening here?
I think in some previous conversations, I know you said that, if you think of all of our training to go to work in a company or to be in a nonprofit or to do whatever you want to do in your life, it is this discipline of planning, which puts you in the future. And also you have to remember all the core things. You can't get them wrong. You're going to be tested. You better remember. So what we're drilled into is keeping the past and then also really forward focused.
Yes.
We're also very biased as a culture, I think, on activity and action.
We're a do culture, I think, rather than
a do culture, right. So if you think about the doing, there's that, and that's important, but there's also the being. And the being is the context around which the doing happens. So you can't really separate them, I think this idea of asking people to slow down and be in the present, number one, is hard, and people can't do it right away. Even for me, I have a busy mind, so I quickly get distracted. What do you do to kind of build that muscle to resist that desire to think about the future or go into the past?
I guess the first thing I would just say is I think it's a little bit like when people talk about meditation. They go, oh my God. And it's a practice. Being in the present moment is a practice. And it means paying attention to often, if we're paying attention to our interior, kind of what are the sensations we're having? Where in our body? What are we seeing? What are our senses? What do we hear? What's the feel of the temperature? It's just enlivening our senses. It's also paying attention to what do we see going on in the other or around us.
I often hear people say things like, oh, you could cut the air with a knife, it was so thick in there, or God, there's this huge elephant in the middle of the room and everybody's smiling like everything's fine. And I think this idea of Gestalt makes you get curious about what is the elephant? What is making the air so tense? What is making me tense up? I mean, the way we use our cells as an instrument is I notice my gut's tightening. And if my gut's tightening, sure as heck, good bet, the person I'm working with has a tight gut too.
Absolutely, and I think just that present paying attention allows us to kind of attend to, here's the pattern that seems to always be. What's not happening, as well as what is.
Right, and I think that idea of the context sort of being the ground, and the focus of our attention being the figure. That language, figure ground, is used a lot in Gestalt. And again, it can sound a little jargony, but it really is what you're focusing on, isn't it? I mean, the figure is whatever I choose to put my attention on. Right?
Yeah, really. Sometimes I imagine it like if it's a dark room and I have like a flashlight and it's like, what am I what then comes to be aware? And I could
and the rest needs to step
and
aside.
It stays a little bit more.
And we
it's
don't
still influencing
we don't
us,
ignore it. It's still influencing.
There.
It's still in the room, but it's kind of becomes a little bit more marginalized. I think we're going to do video in the second video. We're going to talk about the cycle of experience, and it all starts with this idea of sensation. So if you can't get in the moment, you can't be conscious of this journey of how we mobilize ourselves and act or guide it. Really, so it all begins with this: get in the here and now, be in the present moment. As you work with clients, why do you think it's so hard for them? we talked about we get a lot more attention learning the other things, but it's almost like people are scared to do it, you know?
Well, I do think it's a little bit like when people first sit down to meditate as well.
Yeah.
There's a sense of like, oh my God, like where are my thoughts going to go? So sometimes
I'm
it's
losing
just
my security blanket here.
yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
as planned. And I think that often again, as people just begin to kind of sit in it, begin to kind of expand into it, often people find it really kind of luscious and reassuring about, oh, all these things I haven't been noticing that are right here. That's this kind of flow of experience that's always running through me, that's always available to me. And we also, in Gestalt, we have some concepts around kind of awareness experiments, which is like, we want to support people to kind of create experiential opportunities to step into, to try it on. Even if that feels too big, let's make it this big. Just so they can get a little taste and then pay attention to their own experience. Often that's the way that the building blocks kind of can lay out.
Which is a part of what I think is one of the big paradoxes of learning about Gestalt is that the moment you start talking about it, you're not in it. And it's like you can't do both at the same time, kind of. And so, you know, you could think, well, gee, if you can do these videotapes and, you know, in an hour's worth of videotapes, why do I have to go to a class for a week? And I think the answer in that is, it is building a muscle. It's building a practice that's about focus, the discipline of staying in the moment. Being really attentive is hard. It takes a lot of energy to really scan and really self-manage, not going somewhere with it in your mind. You know what I mean? So a little more on this terminology. I know I always use this thing about the Mona Lisa painting, and you know, you remember the face, but you never remember what's in the background. Figure ground is kind of there, and how an artist actually manipulates our attention. What are some things you do as a consultant, or even as a therapist, or working in a community group, whatever the context is, where you see that something is starting to emerge and it needs help, you know, like it could get interrupted, it could get... So what are the things you do that really help sort of guide? Not do it for them, but guide.
Yeah, sure. If I'm in a group, what I might in some ways say is to have people just kind of make their inside outside. To in some way say, like, just pay attention to what's coming up in you. What are you noticing as this is happening? So as we get more of those voices in the room, people kind of, it's almost like weavings in a basket. Like a little weft and a weft and another weft and another weft.
So you're kind of watching the whole thing and trying to help this focus come together, right?
Right, and it has to be often with bringing something from the inside out. Because we can only see other people's exteriors. We can only make guesses about that. But the more people talk about what the impact is, or what they're noticing, or what they're attending to, or what they're excited about, that begins to bring another layer of depth.
So some of the things you learn in the Gestalt program then are maybe how to ask questions purely out of a motive of curiosity and interest, not with an agenda. Or to be able to be present as people start to share something vulnerable so they feel supported.
Absolutely, without an agenda and without, it is really a don't know mind. You sit there and you ask, and we really do not have any idea when we ask another person about their interior, what's going on.
What's going to come up.
We will almost always be surprised. So I think it's that sense of just like the curiosity comes from a place of, again, an open space. We're so programmed, we make such assumptions. So we jump from, it's like ready, fire, aim. So if we can slow it down and say, wait a minute, just pay attention. Is that what it is? Or is it something a little different? So
there's figure ground, there's in a group trying to find common figures, but it's always what the group owns. I think that's the other big piece. The answer is in the group or in the client I'm working with, and I may prod or provoke or
inquire or support people to bring their voices forward. Or to
so this is about learning how to do that without jumping into their rowboat and trying to do it for them. When the picture is clearer and starts to have, well, it's not that, so let's push that to the ground. It's still there, it's still influencing, but we're not going to focus on that part. We're going to choose to put more focus here. That's what produces the power that mobilizes action.
Right, because just as you have your hands out there, it's like people, like the energy is moving toward it, it's shaping it. You're not just sitting there thinking about it.
I want to close with just one powerful idea, and it's something that I think has become a core value for me, and one that I have to be very vigilant about because it's easy to get lazy about it, and that is I can never stop doing my own work if I want to be good at helping other people do their work. And I think it's so easy to rest on the tools we've always used or the designs we've always used or whatever, and I have to remember I have to work to stay present.
Yeah.
And I have to build that muscle in myself, or I'm not ready to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have so many mirror neurons going on that
Yeah.
as the intervener, the facilitator, the coach, that
Yeah.
if you are not embodying that,
Yeah.
it's much harder to support
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
client or a group to move there. Yeah.
Any closing last words from you?
I think that's it.
That's it. What a delight. And we're going to do more conversations, and I'm going to do a couple of short videos on a couple of other concepts. And we hope that this is going to be helpful to you to know more what you might be signing up for when you sign up for a program at the Gestalt Institute of Cleveland.